I think we're almost done here. Can you grab that for me?
The millionaire first noticed the poor single mother at the grocery store on a cold evening that seemed to freeze people's breath the moment they stepped outside, and though he rarely paid attention to strangers, something about the way she clutched her worn-out purse caught his eye, as if she were terrified it might crumble in her hands. Her little girl stood beside her, tiny fingers wrapped around a small bottle of milk, the kind with a cartoon cow on it, and the child's hopeful eyes sparkled like she had been waiting for this treat all day. But when the cashier announced the total, the mother's smile cracked. She dug inside her purse, pulling out coins and a couple of wrinkled notes, counting them again and again with trembling hands, the shame in her eyes growing like a bruise. The cashier's expression turned impatient. The line behind her shifted. Someone sighed loudly. Then the mother whispered to her daughter in a heartbreakingly gentle voice that they couldn't afford the milk today, and she slowly took it from the child's hands. The little girl didn't cry, she just nodded with a quiet acceptance no child should ever know. That was the moment the millionaire felt something shift inside him, something he had buried under years of success, money, and emotional distance. He watched her walk to the customer service desk, returning the milk with an apology even though she had done nothing wrong, and the cashier placed it aside with barely a glance. The millionaire, Daniel Hartman, though few knew his name beyond business magazines, felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest as he looked at the mother and child heading toward the exit. Their jackets were too thin for the weather, the mother's shoes nearly falling apart, the girl's backpack torn at the corner. For a moment he stood frozen, battling between the part of him trained to stay uninvolved and another part that refused to let this moment pass. He remembered his own mother, decades ago, skipping meals so he could eat, hiding tears behind smiles so he wouldn't worry. He remembered poverty not as a concept but as a cold reality, one he had spent his life outrunning. And now, watching this stranger, it all returned with startling clarity. Without another thought, he abandoned his cart, the items forgotten, and followed them out of the store, unsure of what he would say but knowing he couldn't simply walk away. Outside, the wind whipped through the parking lot, making the child shiver as she clung to her mother's hand. Daniel approached slowly, not wanting to startle them, and called out gently. The mother turned, her eyes widening with caution, as if she expected trouble. Her instinctive fear made his heart twist. She had been judged, dismissed, and looked down on enough times to assume that's what was coming. Daniel explained that he had seen what happened inside and asked if he could help. The mother stiffened, shaking her head quickly, insisting they were fine, her pride refusing to let her accept pity even though her voice trembled with exhaustion. The little girl looked up at him with curious eyes, clutching her mother's coat. Daniel understood her pride, he had once carried the same stubborn shield. But he also knew that sometimes help wasn't charity, it was humanity. So instead of offering money outright, he told her he had made the same mistake of forgetting his wallet inside the store and wondered if she would walk back with him so he could pay for the milk for both children, her daughter and his imaginary one. She hesitated. But the gentle sincerity in his tone, the absence of judgment in his eyes, slowly dissolved her walls. Back inside the store, Daniel told the cashier he wanted to pay for the milk, but he didn't stop there. He discreetly signaled for the store manager, explaining he wanted to cover the mother's groceries for the month, anonymously. The manager agreed. The single mom, unaware of the expanding generosity behind her, simply watched as Daniel paid for the milk and thanked him softly, her eyes reflecting both relief and lingering embarrassment. Daniel handed the milk back to the girl, who cradled it like a treasure, her small smile brighter than anything money had bought him in years. He wanted to ask about their lives, what had brought them to this point, but he didn't want to intrude. He simply introduced himself with a humble smile, leaving out the part where he owned half the buildings on the street. Before he could say goodbye, the mother quietly asked why he had helped them, her voice wrapped in confusion rather than suspicion. He responded honestly, that he had once been in her shoes, and someone had once helped him too. The mother's expression softened, the tension in her shoulders easing as she realized he wasn't trying to embarrass her. She introduced herself as Maya and her daughter as Lily. They talked for a while walking to the parking lot, the snow drifting around them like scattered feathers. Maya explained she worked 2 jobs but had lost a shift this month, which left her struggling to choose between rent, food, and heat. Every word she spoke carried quiet strength, the kind that grows in people who have learned to survive storms without umbrellas. Daniel listened without interrupting, genuinely moved by her resilience. He admired how she spoke of her hardships without bitterness, how she shielded Lily from the worst of it, how she smiled even when her circumstances didn't give her many reasons. By the time they reached her small, battered car, Daniel felt certain that this moment had been placed in his path for a reason. Instead of saying goodbye, he asked her if she would be willing to meet him the next day for lunch, purely so Lily could have a warm meal and Maya could rest for an hour. Maya hesitated again, torn between gratitude and the fear of misinterpreting his motives. But Lily tugged her sleeve lightly, whispering that she liked the milkman, making Maya laugh for the first time in weeks. She finally agreed. Daniel smiled, his heart feeling strangely light. As he watched them drive away, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. He no longer cared if he looked foolish for intervening, he cared only that he had helped someone who desperately needed a break from the world's cruelty. The next day, at the small diner Daniel chose intentionally for its cozy atmosphere rather than extravagance, Maya opened up further. She told him about her dreams of returning to school, of becoming a nurse, of giving Lily a better life. Daniel listened with admiration, and the more he learned, the stronger his determination grew to help her without smothering her independence. He offered to help her enroll in evening classes, not as a favor but as an investment in someone he believed in. Maya's eyes filled with tears, not of weakness, but of the shock of being seen after years of invisibility. It had been so long since someone had believed she was capable of more than just surviving. Weeks turned into months, and Daniel became a quiet yet steady presence in their lives. He never flaunted his wealth, never acted superior, never made them feel indebted. He simply showed up with warmth, encouragement, and a willingness to listen. Lily adored him, often drawing pictures of him holding milk cartons like a superhero. Maya blossomed in her classes, rediscovering confidence she had lost years ago. Daniel felt more grounded than ever, no longer trapped in a sterile world of business meetings and empty applause. His life gained color again, and he realized that helping Maya and Lily had filled a space inside him he hadn't known was empty. One afternoon, after Maya passed her first major exam, she invited Daniel to a small celebration dinner at her apartment. It was a modest space, but she had cleaned it top to bottom and decorated the table with paper flowers Lily had made. Over dinner, Maya finally gathered the courage to ask who Daniel truly was, because no ordinary man helps strangers with this level of commitment. He told her the truth at last, that he owned several companies, that he wasn't struggling financially, and that he hadn't said it before because he didn't want her to think his kindness came from pity or superiority. Maya was stunned, but instead of pulling away, she smiled with a depth that reached her eyes. She told him that his heart mattered far more than his wealth. In the months that followed, Maya completed her certification, secured a better job, and finally moved into a comfortable home where Lily had her own room for the first time. Daniel remained by their side, not as a savior, but as family. People eventually learned about how the millionaire had helped the single mother, and newspapers tried to turn it into a story of charity and heroism. But Daniel always corrected them: he didn't save her, she saved him too. She reminded him of compassion, humility, and the beauty of helping without expecting anything in return. And the world was shocked not because a millionaire helped a single mom, but because he chose to do it quietly, sincerely, and with a heart that remembered what it meant to struggle. In the end, a returned bottle of milk became the beginning of a new kind of love, a new kind of purpose, and a new kind of family.